Hey everyone, you're watching We Had That, and today I'm going to talk about the 1988 Wave 7 G.I. Joe Repeater action figure. I got into G.I. Joe right when the line was relaunched as a 3 3/4 inch Real American Hero action figure in 1982. Short Fuse and Breaker were the first two figures I picked out when I saw them in the store, but at the cash register I realized that Breaker didn't have a gun, so I went back and got Grunt instead. I had years of adventures with my G.I. Joe figures, and Hasbro released so many great characters during those first few years that I had an army of awesome figures at my command. But by 1988, I had started to lose interest to some degree. I was still picking them up, but some of the magic was gone. I'm sure part of that was just because I was getting a little older, but I think part of it was also because some of the ideas just weren't as solid as they had been in the early years. When it came to Cobra, I didn't mind some of the over-the-top outfits and concepts. I thought those guys were supposed to be kind of crazy anyway. So if you had a falconer running around actually dressed like a falcon, okay, I guess I can understand a guy like that signing on with Cobra. But when it came to the Joe team, I wanted guys who looked more like what I thought of as military. By 1988, there was a lot less of that than there had been in the early years. However, I thought Repeater had a solid military look about him. And more than that, his role on the G.I. Joe team made sense to me. His file card says he's a heavy weapons specialist in the infantry. That was definitely a role I thought you'd want covered for your squad. Technically, his main job description is Stedi-Cam machine gunner. Even though that isn't really a type of machine gun mount, I always thought that the G.I. Joe team was supposed to be at the cutting edge of technology, so the concept didn't bother me at all as a kid. It did bother me that it was tough to get Repeater to hold his machine gun well, but that's less about concept and more about the execution. When it came to the idea behind the character, Repeater was one of my favorite new Joes for 1988. Often, the file cards got a little bit silly, but Repeater's file card was exactly what I wanted from a G.I. Joe team member. His performance in the field was top-notch, but he wasn't much of a barracks guy, so he stayed in the field for years with a relatively low rank considering the amount of time he'd been in the service. The file card goes on to describe him as a stand-up guy who got the troops back home safely. That's the kind of guy that I would want on my G.I. Joe team. Repeater had kind of a desert camouflage shirt with matching pants, which is similar to what we'd all get used to seeing on the news over the next few years. He wore an unpainted tan field cap with molded-on accents. Those accents are shown in more detail on his card art, where we can see that they're for a ranger patch and jump wings. When it came to footwear, his boots looked very similar to actual combat boots from the era. Over his shirt, Repeater wore a realistic-looking green tactical vest with many pouches molded onto it. He wore a matching green belt with more molded-on pouches and a hand grenade. He didn't have many accessories, but he did come with a very cool backpack molded in green to match his vest and belt. The backpack had a molded-on bedroll and numerous pockets. His other accessory was a two-part Stedi-Cam machine gun. The first part was the machine gun itself, and the other part was a stabilizer arm which attached to a hole in his belt. The gun could also be positioned behind Repeater next to his backpack when it wasn't in use. On the left side of his waist and leg, there was a molded-on black device which I assume was part of the Stedi-Cam mount. As I mentioned before, it was difficult to get Repeater to hold the gun in a way that wasn't awkward, but the gun still looked pretty cool. In 1989, the year after his original release, Repeater appeared again as part of the Night Force line in a 2-pack with a repainted Charbroil figure. This new version of Repeater was the same figure in new colors. The Night Force figures currently sell for a lot more than the original version of the figure. Many people that I know were introduced to the characters from G.I. Joe through the popular G.I. Joe cartoon, and the version of the cartoon that most people remember was produced by Sunbow. But their work with G.I. Joe ended in 1987 with G.I. Joe the movie, so the 1988 Wave 7 characters never had a chance to appear in any of the Sunbow cartoons. A new, lower-budget G.I. Joe cartoon was produced by Dick starting in 1989. This version of the show promoted characters from subsequent waves, but it wasn't as popular and is often forgotten. And to be honest, it wasn't really that good. Repeater did, however, make several appearances in the Marvel G.I. Joe comics. His first appearance was in issue number 82, which I believe was also his only appearance on the cover of an issue. This was a pretty cool issue, too. In the first half, prospective new recruits for the G.I. Joe team undergo an intense vetting process, which is like basic training on steroids. There are more potential new members than spots on the team, so only the best of the best will become the new Joes. The concept is cool, giving kids like me at the time an idea of how good you'd need to be in order to be considered for the Joe team. But since each member of the G.I. Joe team is supposed to be the best at his or her job, it seems kind of strange that people with such different skills would be competing for the same spots on the team. Anyway, once Repeater, Lightfoot, and Budo make the team, they're instantly called up for duty, and the second half of the comic takes us through their first mission. There's some really cool art in there, and we get a chance to see Repeater in action. Repeater makes a handful of appearances in several other comics for the next year or two, including number 86, which is the issue that celebrates the 25th anniversary of G.I. Joe and guest stars the original Joe of the 60s and 70s, as well as the G.I. Joe action nurse. It's a pretty good issue that has a lot of action. Aside from those two issues, Repeater doesn't have any more noteworthy appearances in the regular series, but he is featured in Special Missions number 19, which is an excellent story that involves a helicopter mission with plenty of great action and some nice art for Repeater. Although none of the 1988 figures were ever what I would consider main characters in the G.I. Joe universe, Repeater did make a good number of appearances on G.I. Joe merchandise and was featured on a good bit of the packaging art in 1988. He's manning the rear machine gun on the box art for the Desert Fox. He's manning another machine gun on the art for the Warthog. He's one of many Joes on the art for the Rolling Thunder, this time manning the large cannon. Repeater is on the double machine gun for the artwork for several of the 1988 Series 2 attack packs. And although it's not a toy, he was also featured along with Road Pig on the mural puzzle number 3 from 1988. What do you think of Repeater? Did you have this figure as a kid? Was he on the front line of your battles or left back at base awaiting orders? Tell me in the comments below. Also, please give this video a like and share it on social media. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so that you'll be notified when I post new videos. And one last thing, if you're a fan of toys, you should know about ToyLanta, the biggest toy show in the southeastern United States, held annually just north of Atlanta, Georgia. Visit ToyLanta.com for more information. As always, thanks for watching.